Welcome back everyone to another Company of Heroes 2 replaycast, and this time we're gonna have a 1v1 to have a change on Langriskaya sent in by Earth. So he's gonna be playing as the OKW in the North Spawn, and we're gonna have Royal Hans down in the South as the UKF. Apparently he's been facing him a lot, as this chat message would kind of tell us. I don't know, weird. So, Earth going for some Fox Grenadiers. Weird. Stop sniping. Weird, because I would have expected a Cube Wagon, although he's gonna go for the Cube Wagon third instead of second. Interestingly, that's a weird choice. I just don't really see why. I would have gone for the Cube Wagon first. Anyway, Vickers Machine Gun coming in from Royal Hans. This game is gonna be incredibly long, apparently, so I'm going to speed up at the beginning a little bit. Nothing really is happening anyway. Just another infantry section being built by Royal Hans, and we have Earth going for some more folks, which of course you kind of want to get some extra map control, and also of course to have a lot of infantry units running around using your enemies. Building just in time being captured by Royal Hans. Clearly he knew what Earth was going to try to do. Of course right now the Volksgrenadiers are being kind of hemmed in by both the MG and the infantry section. The infantry section actually takes a beating and has to retreat back to the building. Interestingly, yeah, he's out of the line of sight of the machine gun right now, so he's able to actually build these sandbags, which are going to give him some nice cover. And that's going to mean the central VP captured for Earth. Problem is, well, his Volksgrenadiers over here are really kind of caught between the frying pan and the fire, considering that they're in negative cover, but if they go either way, they're going to either encounter the MG with the Vickers and the infantry section, so this is pretty bad. However, this could be worse, and indeed it is, because the Storm Pioneers are now being caught by the Vickers machine gun. He should try to really, coming in with the Volksgrenadiers. The problem is the machine gun can just simply switch targets, suppress the Volksgrenadiers. It doesn't manage to do that. Very, very lucky for Earth that that does not happen. That's going to allow the Storm Pioneers also to get up and start running at the machine gun. There is another infantry section. Interestingly enough, Royal Hans has gone for the 5th ban, so increased squad sizes for him. He's losing the first infantry section quite quickly, but so are the Volksgrenadiers losing their lives really quickly. So lots of damage coming in on the German troops, having to retreat. Very, very close to annihilation with this infantry section, but all of the members are still alive. In fact, only one of them goes down now, second one goes down. So they're going to start dropping like flies, but it's going to be the same for the Volksgrenadiers because they're getting flanked by the five-man infantry section. And so that's not going to be quite that easy for the Germans to deal with. The infantry section almost goes down. It's trying to do the ring around the rosy against the Sturmpiles, but the Sturmpiles are also suffering from the very, very low HP syndrome, and so free men are not able to destroy that last remaining infantry section guy, and also a bit of a body block coming in from the infantry section, trying to get the last snipe in, but it does not work. In the meantime, the Cube Wagon has been running around the map, capturing a lot of points, which is exactly what Earth was thinking about when he got that vehicle. He's also got a supply half-track on ground that could be turned into a battle group headquarters. At this point, after he gets... Ooh, he's going to drop some medikits to heal up his Sturmpiles. Of course, these now can be dropped at Veterancy 0, so that's a pretty okay little purchase for 30 munitions to avoid having his infantry bite the dust too quickly. The battle group headquarters is going to wisely, I think, go up right near the base, because he really does not want that to go down to something like an AT gun. Of course, we have the tier 2 right now up for Royal Hans, so the AT gun is available to him. Earth going for the battle workers also kind of lowers the value of the AT gun purchase, because there's not going to be a Lux, but there might be a flak half-track. Now, Earth does have the fuel for that, because he's had the control of the first fuel point for quite a long time, so he's got the fuel in the bank ready to go. Royal Engineers up on the field, those can be useful, especially since Earth still hasn't decided to plant down any mines, but that really isn't going to last too long. He's got a lot of munitions in the bank, so I'm guessing that he's going to go for some kind of mine laying operation, or just in general upgrades on his infantry, which looks like he is going for some STG-44, so actually we're going to be without mines for quite a long time. for the Germans at least. But still, Royal Hans still in a pretty good position now. He also has the weapon rack upgrades, so going pretty heavily on the Royal Headquarters upgrades. So of course, going with both the infantry section bolster and the weapon racks is pretty much 50 fuel that he's not going to be using for some vehicles, especially an AEC, in the early game. But it's going to definitely help him out against the Volksgrenadiers in the early game, especially since the Volksgrenadiers getting those upgrades, we're thinking of getting some extra damage off on the not the rear echelons, the Royal infantry sections. Of course, because of those upgrades that we now have on the British infantry, that's not going to really happen. That plan goes pretty much up in smoke. And of course, now that also kind of results in more map control for the Brits, since they are going to be winning more engagements. Now we have a bit of a flank coming in from the Sturm piles, getting around the hedgerows, trying to get into the rear of these infantry sections. The problem is there's 2 infantry sections. I know it looks like an MG34 heavy machine gun team has been purchased by Earth, who is going to use that to lay down a bit of suppressing fire on these infantry sections, coming in with the Sturm piles to get a bit of a flanking maneuver off and killing them in the process. Nicely taking up some heavy cover behind his own sandbags and managing to get quite a lot of damage off on the infantry sections. Thanks also to the support of the Cube Wagon that is going to cause 4 casualties out of the 5 men of the infantry section. Very, very nice flank with those Sturm piles. The problem is there's a Vickers, so at this point the Cube Wagon really has to retreat as quickly as possible, as do the Sturm piles. They should probably let the MG34 deal with the situation. At this point, Earth has a lot of resources in terms of both manpower and fuel. So I was thinking that maybe he could go for a support gun to deal with all of this British turtling around the house and hedgerow area. Because of course that would help against both the MGs and the infantry sections, being that the infantry sections aren't the cheapest little type of infantry. Of course, they're only about 28 manpower to reinforce, but that kind of bleed can add up in the long term. In fact, we do have a support gun coming through from Earth, so this could be a pretty good decision from him, or it could be a disaster, because he could have also gone for a Schwer Panzer headquarters to secure the right side of the map. Of course, we do have an AT gun on the field for Royal Hans, so we do have a bit of a means to deal with the Schwer Panzer in case it does come up. Needed a bit of water, but at least we know that Earth is going to be playing a little bit safe. Not going for a rash tech up, but also trying to secure his position, also planting down some mines, getting the indirect fire, which of course pays off over time. The longer you're able to get this thing firing on the enemy and getting casualties off, the more it's going to pay for itself. Rather than going for this something like a quick Schwer Panzer, which he could have done. At this point, of course, he's still got 220 fuel, which might signify that he's going for an Ostwind from the Scavenge Doctrine. This could be an option for him. It could also be that he's waiting for a Command Panther from the Special Operations Doctrine. He's got both of those available to him, and whatever he picks will definitely impact heavily the course of the game and the way he's going to be playing later on. He's right now contesting all 3 sides of the map, coming in with the Sturm Pioneers on the right, the Volksgrenadiers in the center, and the Volksgrenadiers on the left. The problem is he's basically losing all 3 areas because he's not really concentrating properly on one area or another. In fact, he almost loses one of the Volksgrenadiers. The second Volksgrenadier on the left side manages to capture the fuel point, so that's a pretty heavy blow to the British resource income. The problem is it needs to run away very, very quickly to avoid getting itself wiped out. And right now also the 75mm LEIG support gun is very much in trouble. It's covered by a few mines, but the problem is there's also a sniper on the field for the Brits. So of course the sniper is going to be picking off some Germans, especially at that long range that Langreskaya really allows you to go for. Right now we do have a supply half-track coming in from Earth, and right now Royal Hans has enough resources to go for a company command post, of course. We could see a company command post. Cromwells are an extremely powerful tool on something like Langreskaya. Of course, they have pretty wide openings for flanks, so of course they can just zip around the map and get their job done quite quickly. At the same time, though, Royal Hans might be a bit safer going for our Firefly if, of course, he knew that there was a Schwer Panzer quarters coming up. I feel like that would definitely be his option. Machine gun also goes down, but unfortunately the cube wagon goes down. So the Vickers does get away with it, which is quite lucky. In the meantime, the support gun is still firing, gets a couple of kills, in fact only one, and gets a few friendly fire hits off on the Volksgrenadiers. It does not actually kill them, but it does lower their HP enough that looks like a couple of Volksgrenadiers went down to the fire of these poor infantry sections. Infantry sections are now up to veterancy 2 and 3 of them. There's a fourth one, which is up to Vet 1. So, of course, the Brits right now have a huge advantage in terms of infantry, not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of quality and equipment, because they have those Brens up and running, which is, of course, amazing for the Brits, because on an open map like Rangiskaya, with lots of long-range engagements coming in, having the superior LMGs with some very, very highly vetted up infantry sections is, of course, going to be an extremely strong tool. Problem is, these Volksgrenadiers are going to die if they do not retreat. I'm thinking that Earth is trying to push away the sniper. I'm not sure for what reason he's thinking of essentially sacrificing his folks. He could have just turned around the sniper and killed one of them, and then the folks would have had to retreat because there would only been one guy left. But instead, Royal Hans decides to play it safe, lure the Volksgrenadiers in, and I'm still not sure why they're coming in with only 2 men. They're going to be trying to pop down a flame grenade on the building. They almost go down. The sniper isn't going to be trying the last shot of luck. Very unfortunate that it, I think, didn't have the line of sight to take the last shot. It might have been able to wipe out that infantry section, but what's done's done. No use crying over spilled wipes. And of course, crying is definitely not what Royal Hans is doing. He's pushing up all of his infantry sections pretty much. One of them, however, runs into the eastern wind of the Ostwind, and that, of course, means dropping 1 Bren in pretty much the territory of the Germans. Support gun also getting quite a bit of damage off on the enemy. It's pretty much able to fire from the base right into the middle point area of the map. So that is probably the advantage of just playing in a small map, especially in 1v1s. With the support gun, you can do some pretty nasty business just firing from the base. Now, the Ostwind is going to also be able to do some nasty business of its own and force away lots of the Brits to retreat. In fact, one of them gets completely wiped out. And the AT gun also reveals itself. This is the only piece of AT available to the Brits. In fact, the Ostwind is doing so much to actually help out Earth. Right now, we have a 105mm howitzer barrage from the Scavenged Doctrine. I think that he didn't have that many munitions stockpiled, however, so it's not going to be that many shells. It does serve to force the AT gun to retreat, but we have a Cromwell in production for the Brits. So, of course, that is pretty dangerous for this Ostwind. It was pretty much only purchased to counter the Ostwind, but if it does indeed take it out, then it is going to be very much worth it, because the Ostwind and the Cromwell are pretty similar in prices. As you can see, Ostwind is at 210 manpower and 100 fuel, whereas the Cromwell is at 115 fuel? 120 fuel. And 300 manpower, something like that. Yeah, 340 manpower. But it's going to help. Another squad goes down to the Ostwind, so 2 infantry sections being wiped out by this glorious German vehicle of doom. The problem is, it isn't going to really be able to do much else. It's going to be running into the last remaining trap set by the the heat-seeking Piat that actually followed the Ostwind. But still, the Brits are left with a Cromwell that they can still use against the Germans. The Germans, who, mind you, only have a Raketenwerfer as a team, and a couple of course, mines and Panzerhauses. The problem is the Raketenwerfer is really, really easily flanked by a very speedy vehicle like the Cromwell. So, of course, this is a pretty dangerous situation for Earth. It's also a pretty dangerous situation, however, for Royal Hans, because he's down to only 2 infantry sections and an MG. So that means that he's going to be lagging behind in terms of map control. It means that the Germans are going to have a bit of a breathing space to come up with some more ATs, while the Brits don't have a lot of infantry to actually counter the AT guns. So second Raketenwerfer going to be coming in for Earth. That's pretty good. What I would also really like to see is a Schwer Panzer headquarters being set up aggressively by Earth, because the Cromwell really isn't well armored enough to deal with the Schwer Panzer headquarters when supported, especially by Raketenwerfers. So, because of the purchase of that Cromwell, we're going to have a delay on something like a Comet or a Firefly. And so it kind of allows Earth to go for a more aggressive Schwer Panzer. Although it would still, I would have to say, be safer to put it in the base because he is with the Scavenge Doctrine. So he's playing with a doctrine that's really relying on the Schwer Panzer to get out the big stuff. Because of course he's got the Ostwind, but the Ostwinds really aren't going to be able to deal with the Brits' armor if something like an AVRE comes out. Of course, Royal Engineers picked excellent doctrine for a long stalemate, especially with the AVRE. And of course the vehicle crew repairs, which can be very, very strong. Here comes the Spigot, completely wiping out one of the Volksgrenadiers and evening out the infantry situation to 2 squads each. Of course, both at very, very high levels of veterancy, but it's more valuable for the Brits to have that veterancy because it's got the bigger guns talking. It's got the Brens instead of just the STG-44s. In the meantime, however, we still have the support gun singing its tune of death against the poor infantry sections, and that's not really all that well off to Royal Hans. He's going to have to try something to take out this thing soon enough because he's just taken so many casualties from it. I would really like to see him go for something more aggressive, some kind of aggressive move against the support gun. The AVRE is definitely pretty aggressive. Comes in very close to the British, well, actually the German base area. Takes a Panzerfaust for his troubles and is going to force away the Raketenwerfers. But the Raketenwerfers are very near the base, so they're going to be able to come back and try to pick on this damaged AVRE. Of course, there's quite a lot of British units actually defending the AVRE. Here comes the attempt of a Panzerfaust against the Cromwell as well. It's going to go off. It might actually run into the ground. No, it does connect very, very well for the Germans. The problem is they can't really follow up because they don't have any vehicles of their own. The Schwer Panzer headquarters has just now been set up. And of course, we don't really have the Panzer coming in the field quickly enough to deal with the British tanks, to deal a death blow to them. Although, actually, this might be very bad for Royal Hans because he's repositioning the AT gun. He's not expecting a flank coming in from the Panzer. Now he sees, however, he sees the Panzer that's coming in from the flanks. The Panzer is going to have to try to take out the Cromwell as quickly as possible. Of course, it is a Panzer, so it can run through the hedgerows. Right now, it's going to have to be very careful because there's a Royal Engineer with a Piat and a AT gun, but the AT gun's actually getting wiped out by the Volksgrenadiers. Very good job. And the Volksgrenadiers spot for a Panther, and the Panther uses the attack round feature to go through the hedgerow. Very excellent flank from Earth. Manages to take out a priority target for him. Right now, the Brits have no medium tanks left, and so the Panther is going to be the king of the field for a long, long time. Of course, Royal Hans does almost have the resources to go for a new Cromwell. The problem is, a Cromwell against the Panther is a fairly poor match, so he's going to have to wait probably until he has something like a Comet or an alternative, a Firefly. A Firefly would prevent him from having a medium tank that can deal with enemy weapon teams and infantry. The problem, of course, is that with only a Comet, you don't really have the best vehicle to deal with the Panther one-on-one because the Comet's more expensive than the Panther. Wait. Did I just say something ridiculous? No, actually the Comet's less expensive in terms of fuel, but it is more expensive in terms of manpower. Never mind. I am a bit of an idiot. I was going with the old prices for the Panther, which was 175 instead of 200. Never mind. Still, the Comet's, I guess, okay then. He's going to have to wait more, however, to go for one, whereas the Firefly is only like 160 fuel. 155, so he's gonna have a bit of an easier time getting that very, very good Spigot. Interestingly, it doesn't even deal 1 HP point of damage to the MG34 weapon itself. In the meantime, Earth has just been doing some very, very nice flanking maneuvers, capturing up these fuel points pretty much throughout the game. Has been pretty much a boon for him because he's been able to lower the fuel income of the Brits pretty significantly, and the boon of that has been seen in the fact that he hasn't gotten to face any real big British stuff coming in from the vehicle stab. We do have the AVRE, of course, which is 140 fuel, but at the same time, it really isn't a combat vehicle. It's more like a support wiper unit. I call it a wiper for a lack of a better term. You know what I mean. A unit that's good at wiping out enemy infantry squads. Right now, however, the AVRE is really in trouble because the Panther is trying to chase it down. There's also a artillery barrage coming in on the AT guns. the AT guns say thank you, no problem, because they're going to be repositioning anyway to try to deal with the Panther, although one of the shells does land in their midst and does quite a bit of damage. Here comes the support of the Volksgrenadiers, but the Volksgrenadiers are going to be in the crosshairs of this Churchill AVRE. Volksgrenadiers managed to take out one of the anti-tank guns, so that's going to be half the firepower running up against the Panther. One less 6-pounder gun to deal with the 85mm frontal armor of that Panther tank, which is of course pretty bad because here comes the Panther. AVRE actually managed to run over quite a few of the Volksgrenadiers, and the Panther runs straight into the line of fire of that anti-tank gun, and also the line of fire of those Piats, so it's going to have to retreat as quickly as possible. In fact, another one of the infantry sections has gone down, it looks like on the eastern side of the map, considering this might still be that last red, however. Interestingly enough, Earth hasn't gone to recover it for himself. That is because, most likely, he does not have these weapon slots in his inventory. He could recover with red with his Sturmpiles, however. Not sure why he wouldn't do that. Because it would still definitely help the Sturmpiles quite a lot, but oh well. MG34, however, is recovered by Earth. So right now the VP game is very much in favor of the Allies. They at least have that going for them. Of course, we have a Firefly coming in, so that isn't going to be the best possible thing for the British map control. However, it is going to be really excellent when dealing with the Panther, especially depending on Will Hans's use of tulip rockets. He does not have the biggest stockpile of munitions in the world, but he's got a decent amount. He can fire out a couple of those lovely tulip rockets, and as we've seen a few times before on our channel, these can also be fairly useful against infantry if you have the targeting skills required to actually hit enemy infantry. Although, with the Spigot available, he really does not need extra sort of big anti-infantry AoE type abilities, but they can still be quite useful. Okay, so the AT gun very smartly is used to take out the Raketenwerfer's HP bar. So that Raketenwerfer isn't going to be used anytime soon against the the British armor. AVRE comes in to run over the Volksgrenadiers. That's a big mistake, I think, that Mr. Royal Hans made. A Panzer IV. This is an interesting choice. We'll talk about it later. It was a mistake because what if there was a Panther waiting here? This AVRE would have been pretty screwed, even with the support of the Firefly and the infantry sections. I'm thinking that a big German push right now would have been able to take out first the Firefly and then the AVRE with the crippled engine. However, we have the AVRE just like running over everybody, and this time the Panther is coming, and the AVRE is very, very exposed. It has absolutely no way to defend itself against the Panther because of this house blocking the line of sight for the AT gun and the Firefly. So, of course, the Panther managing to utilize the terrain to its advantage. Do we have a flank? We do have a flank coming in from the Panzer IV. This is exactly what the Germans absolutely need to do right now. The machine gun, the Free Vickers machine gun team is going down, and the Panzer IV is going to be trying to land a finishing blow on it. The problem is, along with the support of the support gun, whatever, it's going to be able to take out one of the support weapons and also take out the AT gun, maybe. AT gun very narrowly escapes death from the fire of the 75mm support gun. At the same time, the Firefly managed to push the Panzer IV LCJ off back into the distance, so that really did save quite a lot of British stuff from biting the dust, and quite a lot of dust is being kicked up still by the support gun, which is now up to 3 and 17 kills. So Royal Hans still absolutely needs to try to do something about the support gun. Very luckily for him, the AVRE managed to survive, partially thanks to its very, very high HP pool and very, very high armor. So that is good for him, at least. So what he can do is try to rebuild his infantry force, which he is kind of doing. He's gone for a second Royal Engineer, and he's still got only one infantry section, but that is because he really doesn't have a lot of manpower to work with. So if he were actually to go for some more infantry squads in the future, it's going to be to the detriment of his vehicle force, which might be worth it considering he's really losing on the map control situation. He's still losing points on the left side of the map to Volksgrenadiers by Earth, just coming in and capturing them because he does not really have the units to defend the area from attacks. He does not really have the units to spare at all. At this point, however, I feel like he's definitely, and by he I mean Royal Hans, is definitely having a bit of a deficiency in harassment. He should send some more of his Royal Engineers on the right side of the map to capture this strategic point, this fuel point, and this VP. He's been winning the VP game, but right now he's under a triple cap from the Germans, which of course is very, very terrible for him because he really does not want to get a triple cap inflicted upon him. Even with 360 VPs available, that's only 6 minutes of time to avoid losing to the triple cap, and he's going to lose his precious last infantry section, maybe. I don't know. Okay, it's very lucky. It's very lucky to escape. In fact, the Volksgrenadiers themselves might go down. They do manage to survive. AVRE is pushing in to deal with, I'm guessing, these Volksgrenadiers, supported by the Firefly and all of the British support weapons covering the flanks. So this is definitely a pretty decent little push coming in from the Brits. It might result in the wipe of the Volksgrenadiers if the spigot is aimed correctly, but the infantry is actually going to escape way too quickly for the AVRE to chase. At this point, we have a flank coming in for the Panzer IV, managing to thread the needle of the British defenses. Of course, managing to get around the last AT gun in the south, take it out. The problem is the Firefly is going to be replying in kind, and that's not going to be that good for the Panzer IV's weak frontal armor, and he's going to have to retreat as quickly as possible out of there. At the same time, the AVRE really does not have the ability to do much, which means wipe out the machine gun yet again. It's like the third time it wiped out that MG34. At this point, I feel like the Brits really need to do some kind of operation to prevent the Germans from recapturing it yet again. And we have a second support gun coming in from Earth. He's going to be sacrificing the infantry capping power to get some more killing power on the last remaining support weapons from the Brits, which isn't perhaps the worst possible decision. However, we have a Centaur AA tank from Royal Hans. I feel like this is definitely a huge mistake because at this point Earth has a Panzer IV, and he's going for a Jagdpanzer. So he's definitely not going to be weak on the anti-tank of the anti-tank department in general. He's also got a Raketenwerfer, so he's really going to be prepared for something like a Centaur. In fact, he's also going to run into a mine, and there's still more mines hidden about in the OKW side of the map, so this isn't really a weak, position that Earth is in against vehicles. Perhaps going for a Comet would have been a much wiser decision for Royal Hans, waiting perhaps a little bit more, and of course spending the extra fuel for the hammer tactics, but at the same time would have been so much better because this Centaur really isn't that useful also against the Panzer IV, and now the Jagdpanzer. We have a pretty big howitzer barrage, actually hitting more of the Germans than of the Brits. The Brits aren't really going to be scathed at all by this barrage, and so they're going to just be withering it with just a bit of a stiff upper lip and coming in. The Firefly is still quite enough to deal with the Panzer IV, but with the Jagdpanzer around, and also the Panther, where's the Panther? Is it flanking? No, it's repairing. With the Panther as well, if it manages to flank, the Firefly really isn't enough to 1v3 the German vehicles. It would be enough to 1v1 the P4 or the Panther, but it really isn't going to be enough for all the three combined. Also, there's one AT gun, but it's really going to be easy to flank. Either flank or destroy, because of course, let's remember that Earth has 2 of these LEIG support guns. So you can quite easily just bombard this thing to death, or at least force it to reposition so many times in a row that it really isn't going to be having a decent firing position to hit Germans as they're coming in. So at this point, Earth does have the Volksgrenadiers coming in for the center. The triple cap did manage to get about 60 VPs off, and this Panther is going to be suicided to take out the Centaur. Very lucky, incredibly lucky that he does not die to the 2 6-pounders. In fact, the fact that the Firefly was under repair really did save Earth over here. He could still upgrade the Tulip rockets. At this point, he's got 260 munitions in the reserve, so that could be a much needed extra source of anti-tank. And we have a 4th vehicle coming in from the Germans, another Ostwind coming in for Earth. So he's going to go for the heterogeneous, multicultural tank force with lots of different types. Not really going for a single type spammed in mass numbers. Of course, this has its advantages and its disadvantages. The fact that he's got 4 different vehicles to micromanage really is going to be a disadvantage, but the fact that he's got 4 different vehicles could be an advantage. Of course, as you can see, he's sending in one of the vehicles to do its job, but he's forgetting about all the others, and they're going to be late in coming in. So the Firefly is going to be able to pretty easily take out the P4. Well, pretty much without the other tanks interfering. The Panzer is going to be able to take out the Firefly, and of course right now the Austin is going to be getting a bit of a number off on the AT guns, but the AT guns are still alive, and they're doing quite a bit of a number on the Jagdpanzer, and the Panzer is going to be going down soon enough if it does not retreat. The Ostwind is taking huge amounts of fire from these ATs. Can they get the last shot in? I think so. With the support of these infantry sections, no, they're not able to do that. We have the Piats trying to get the last remaining round in. The spring-loaded round does go into the Jagdpanzer, but it does not kill the Ostwind, which was running away. The Panzer also manages to escape with only a damaged gun, and also the AVRE went down, so all of the British vehicles going down in smoke and flames, and only one of the German vehicles suffering the same fate, also known as the Panzer IV. Still, if, for example, Earth had 2 Panthers and a Panzer IV, he definitely wouldn't have had the problem of sending in the Panzer IV too quickly, I don't think, because he was definitely busy managing all of his free vehicles to do sort of their job at the same time. A big problem right now for Earth is that he does not have any Sturmpiles. He's lost them in the last skirmish, and he's only now upgrading the automatrons on the mechanized regiment headquarters. So he's going to be basically without repairability for quite a while. He's going to be coming in with the Sturmpile squad, and upgrading the support package immediately is of course going to be the correct option for him. He's going to be losing the map control momentarily because he does not have any infantry units on the field. He's only got the 2 support guns. He can try to recapture the Reckenwerfer, but he's only got 1 Volksgrenadier on the field. He could try to go for an Oberstleutnant squad, or what I would do is go for lots and lots of Volksgrenadiers, because he just needs the extra capping power to contest as many points on the map as possible from the Royal Hans. What he really doesn't want to happen right now is Royal Hans just consolidating, managing to build up defenses on this area, perhaps even a 17-pounder AT gun. Of course, he does not have... Wait, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about something. Is there any way to upgrade the 17-pounder? I don't think so. Well, yeah, right. That doctrine, right? The advanced emplacements with the extra armor. But, of course, he's still going to be... Why is there any music? Oh, well. Let's speed it up. Panzer comes in very ballsily to scout for the, of course, support guns. He's going to be fairly quickly repaired by the mechanized. A second Ostwind, or well, a third overall, but a second one on the field right now. He's not going to go for an extra P4. That's an interesting choice. The Ostwind is less expensive in terms of actual manpower by quite a bit, 80 manpower less. And I think he might want the extra firepower against the AT guns especially, which is a smart move. He does not want the AT guns around to take out his Panthers and the Jagdpanzer. Here comes the infantry first this time. This is a smart move. He wants to come in with the infantry. He takes out actually the machine gun, which is great, but the infantry goes down to the AVRE. Very good. Using the line of sight of the AVRE, well, rather the destroyed house, to conceal the AVRE and its deadly turret turning. And, ooh, interesting. 2 mines going off at once. So, very good mine placement from Royal Hans. It's going to be basically detracking 2 German vehicles at once. The problem is the Ostwinds are just doing a number on the AT guns. One of them goes down just as the Ostwind does, or does it? This little rise on the ground actually manages to save the AT gun for quite a while and manages to make it survive for long enough to actually pop a couple more rounds into the armor of the Ostwind. And of course, the Ostwind's main gun is destroyed, which means that the 6-pounder on the extreme right is much safer right now, as there's no Ostwind destroying it. No more Ostwinds left on the field. The AVRE is going down. Here comes the Spigot on the Jagdpanzer IV, and the Jagdpanzer IV might go down to the Royal Engineers with the Piats. Last shot coming in. It does not hit. Very lucky for the Jagdpanzer. In the meantime, the Panther's trying to just dance and make a bit of a surprise butt sex, I guess, against the AVRE. So it does manage to kill it. The Brits are completely out of fuel and manpower. Well, not completely out of manpower, but definitely completely out of fuel. As are the Germans, however. They do have the Panzer left and the Panzer, but the Panzer is going to be going down soon enough. It's got a damaged engine. And with Piats around, it is most definitely going to go down very quickly. But the troops from the Brits decide to turn around and kill the Jaegers for some reason. Of course, they are going to drop back and destroy the Panther with the support of those two AT guns. A bit of a frontally rushed assault. It was both rushed and frontal. So at this point, Earth is actually down to 43. Ooh, there goes the Jaegers. He's down to 41, 39 pop cap, which is actually less than the Brits. However, he does have more resources than the Brits. A lot of that pop cap is actually a Jagdpanzer, which right now really isn't all that useful because there's only actually only British infantry that it has to face. So it really isn't going to be all that useful. But the Jagdpanzer could provide a bit of a, base for rebuilding the German armored force. At this point, however, if I was Earth, I would definitely focus on trying to get some kind of versatile vehicles. I would go for a lot of Panzer IVs, actually, if I was Earth at this point, because clearly Austrians have failed in taking out the AT guns. I would go for something that can deal with the enemies at a bit of a longer range, and can also provide some extra anti-tank firepower in case the Brits go for another tank. Or perhaps, what would be a smart move would be to go for a map hack wagon, a 251 infrared half-track. Now, hear me out. The reason is, he's got two support guns. Right now, those are the mainstay, essentially, of his force, because they can just plop down rounds against the Brits at a pretty frightening pace because of the veteran C4 on one of them. And of course, they're quite accurate, and they can do quite a lot of damage against the British infantry. So they can make up for his lack of troops, boots on the ground. However, to do that, you need to be able to fire essentially non-stop. So if you have the Map-Hackswagen and you protect it with mines, the Jagdpanzer, and perhaps a Raketenwerfer, you're going to be able to protect it from, of course, any just British vehicles diving in. And then you can use the support guns to take out all of the British at range. Now, at this point in the game, at 45 minutes, you don't really think about going for something like an infrared half-track, so I am not really blaming Earth for not going for it. I still feel like it would be an excellent choice, despite the 200 manpower investment. I still feel like it could be very, very useful for him. Because, yeah, again, it's not going to provide any capping power, it's not going to provide any field presence, but it is definitely going to help with the targeting of these support guns, and it is definitely going to help, of course, in softening up the British infantry. Because right now, the Brits have an infantry advantage, absolutely, and it's what's keeping them in the game, especially with their VP situation being as good as it is. But, and there's a but, for the vehicle situation, the Brits really aren't going to be able to dent the Germans anytime soon. And all this infantry, if the Germans can manage to inflict a lot of casualties, can be turned from a strength into a weakness. Of course, by bleeding a lot and requiring, with a lot of infantry squads in the field, lots of reinforcements, you can't really bleed out the Brits and prevent them from actually building anything else with their fuel. So thus, kind of driving them even deeper into the depression pit of not having any manpower. In the meantime, however, the priority for the Germans is going to be to capture some VPs, which is actually why, if I was Royal Hans, I might as well just gone for a Vickers machine gun instead of a Centaur. The Centaur does manage to wipe out a squad, but at the same time, the Centaur is going to have to contend with the fact that there's a Jagdpanzer around. And at the same time, the Brits really need to defend VPs. And in the late game, when you want to defend VPs, you might as well just go for some MGs. Because, of course, you can just put an MG somewhere and pin down the enemy infantry as it's coming in. Right now, also, this is a huge mistake. He could just go in with one of these infantry squads and capture this point. He's going to take quite a while, and that's going to hinder his VP supply by quite a bit. But that's just a side little effect. Again, if he were to go for another MG, he would be able to place down one MG on the central VP and another MG on the left. The advantage of also having an MG on the left is that it's going to be basically out of range of the support guns, which is of course quite important right now if you're Roll Hans, because of course the support guns are really the main problem right now he has to face with his support weapons. Is this going to be trying the counter with the sniper? The sniper is definitely going to be quite dangerous to the support guns if the support guns aren't really pulled back, or if there's nothing that... Ooh! I didn't realize he was going for a KT. That's definitely a good choice, however. Because the KT isn't really countered by anything that's on the field for the Brits right now. Only the AT guns are really a problem. And the AT guns can be taken out, again, by the support guns. Support guns just need to be micromanaged a little bit better, and they can be an extremely important asset to the success of Royal Hans. At this point, the Königstiger really needs to take up the front with some infantry support. At this point, here comes the artillery barrage on the back lines of the Brits. This is exactly the correct moment to push in with the Königstiger. One of the AT guns goes down. I would have taken out the AT gun and then just retreated. Or perhaps, oh, there goes the Centaur. The AT guns aren't taken out as weapons, however. And so that means that the Royal Engineers do not grab the AT guns for some reason, and they just let the Königstiger destroy them. That's incredibly, I guess, negligent? Yeah, this is really negligent. They could have just taken those AT guns and destroyed the Königstiger. Look at that. It's basically at 10% HP. If one of those squads had taken the AT guns, then the Königstiger would have gone down, because it would have still fired at them, but it wouldn't have been able to take them out in one hit if they were, of course, decently healthy, which they were. But oh well. In the meantime, on the left side of the map, a squad goes down to the Germans. The Germans have a bit of an advantage in that there's the scavenge doctrine. So they have the Jaeger light infantry, which is not something to be underestimated because they can spawn off of buildings. Right now, the Germans are down to 25 points. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is either they're going to just run out of points, or they're just try to go for one last hurrah. And at this point, with an Ostwind on the field and soon enough a Jaeger spawn available, the Germans are going to be deceptively strong, especially with the Königstiger around. It's going to come down to how well the support guns can actually take out the British infantry. There goes the Ostwind immediately to the Firefly, but the Firefly is actually getting bullied away by the Jagdpanzer. The Jagdpanzer gets stunned up by the sniper. Very, very well played. The veteran C4 Jagdpanzer is going to have to basically go down to the Sherman Firefly. The Sherman Firefly manages to get a kill, but the German infantry has managed to neutralize the central VP. In the meantime, the Königstiger is going into the center, but its turret is doing a weird rotation trying to get to the British infantry on the VP. So that is going to lose its essentially precious reloading time and precious firing time, in which it isn't going to be putting out any damage against the Brits. The Firefly is very, very weak right now, but the sniper is going to be popping up a quick shot on the Königstiger, and it's also getting pelted by the Piats as we speak. So the Königstiger is trying to get around the turret destroyed modifier, but it's going to go down, and Nerf surrenders. Very, very well played by Royal Hans, using his infantry advantage at the last possible juncture in the game, managing to survive with his two AT guns, and then use those to essentially ward off the KT long enough to get his VP game to win the game for him. So, what could the Germans have done differently? I still think that a infrared half-track, funnily enough, would have won the game for Earth. Now, again, it's not something that you think about, but oh well. Also, of course, it's Langraskaya, so you should probably be expecting long games with quite a lot of long-range engagements and quite a lot of manpower bleed. So perhaps going early on for a couple of Obersoldaten, 1 or 2, would have been a pretty decent choice, because of course, with those LMG-34s that they have, they can be a very, very dangerous asset against enemy infantry. At the same time, perhaps instead of going for all those different kinds of vehicles at once, as I said, going for maybe a couple of vehicles, maybe just Panzer IVs and Jagdpanzer IVs, or perhaps just Panthers and Panzer IVs, going with one anti-vehicle tank and one anti-infantry tank, so that it's a little bit easier to micromanage an assault with them, might have been the better option than going for all those different specialized vehicles, going for one P4, one Panther, one Ostwind, and one JP4. That it's then really a really hard combination to manage. Maybe that would have been a bit safer to go for instead of what Earth decided to actually purchase. But oh well, that was kind of a side point, I guess. But yeah, overall, very well played by Rollhans, and thanks for Earth actually sending in a loss. That is good. That completely surprised me, because usually people only send in their wins. So yeah, do send in your losses, because it's both useful for you to actually get your loss casted, because you may have, you may be looking at the replay, but since it's you playing, you may not notice something. So of course, if you send it to the caster, then maybe the caster notices something that you would have never even thought about. And plus, it's just nice to not have an easily predicted, I guess, finale for once. So pretty nice. Also, I guess the Doctrine pick was iffy from Earth. He used his artillery barrages in an interesting way, but he was never really able to capitalize on the disruption he caused to the AT guns, because what he tried to do was plop down the artillery, make the AT guns run away, and then come in with his vehicles, but he was never really able to perfect that combination, get the timing just right. So that was something that Earth could have worked on. And of course, again, spending so much fuel on Ostwinds, I think he bought like 3 in the end, maybe 4. No, not the Brits. Come on. Yes, now I am the OKW. How many Ostwinds? 4. Actually, 4 Ostwinds. So that's 400 fuel. That would have been a KT. Considering his fuel income, that would have been a KT about 10 to 12 minutes earlier, depending on the situation and depending on what else you could have bought with that fuel. So it's something to think about, really. If the KT had come in earlier in the game, when there was the first Firefly that went down to the Panther flank, if there had been a KT there instead of a JP4 and a Ostwind, could that have gone differently? I think so. But that is not something that Earth thought about. Again, this is one of the trappings of doctrines that actually have, as you say, like, off-map call-ins, right? Because you're thinking about the off-map call-in and you're just like, oh, it's a cool button. I can press it, and here comes a unit right off the bat. I don't even have to wait. Of course, the KT is the same way, so I guess that's kind of a neat point. But sometimes you may be better off going for some non-doctrinal units that actually have a bit of a better impact on the game instead of tunnel visioning onto your doctrinal units. Just because you pick the doctrine doesn't mean you have to use everything in it. Just like, for example, Earth only really deployed Jaegers once or twice. Again, sometimes it's just better to hold off and think about what you're doing. So yeah, I want to thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the cast, and I'll see you soon.